I know my daughter is 5.5, and even before this, she was going through a stage where she was having nightmares, waking up at night, afraid of monsters and that type of thing. How do you strike the balance between being honest but not giving too much information so that you don't scare smaller children?
Right. Well, I think it really comes down to a lot of it is around parent reaction. Again, being honest that, yeah, this is terrifying, it's upsetting, it's confusing, but at the same time, watching the reaction that parents may have in terms of kind of exploding with their own anger and so forth, because children are like magnets and sponges, and they will really pick up reactions from parents more so, and other caretakers, than anyone else. So being honest, but you know, connecting with adults if there's a lot of emotion that you need to release.
Leanne, obviously there's a lot of coverage with us being on the air as well as numerous media outlets. Should we restrict how many hours children watch the coverage, how much they're seen, and how much they're exposed to?
Yeah, I really certainly think that's helpful, because again, children are often flooded, and they just cannot take in the amount of information and the repeated pictures of fires and explosions. It's just overwhelming for them, and they developmentally they're just not able to take care of themselves that way. And for adults, it's so difficult. We can only imagine what it can do for children.
And for smaller children, we adults may overlook the simple fact that to kids, small kids, TV is TV. I mean, if it's on the TV screen, that's no different to them than maybe watching their Saturday morning show. So it's important to stress that this is happening not here, where, and we know exactly where we live, but we are a distance from it. Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because again, children need to feel safe, and for parents and caretakers, foster parents, whomever, to really reinforce that the children are safe, that the people that they love and care for are safe, and that we have to have a sense of trust in the leaders in our country, that they are going to do everything they can to help us to feel safe.
All right, thank you.
So that's, I think, the message of safety, and activities for children like drawing pictures, writing stories, those kinds of things to release their feelings, because talking may be too hard.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Some good advice. Leanne Meldow from New Britain General Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leanne. We appreciate your coming down this morning. Almost 6:17, Metro North rail service to New York is expected to return to normal schedule today. Trains going through were on a Saturday schedule yesterday.
Channel 3's Lee Ferlisi is at Union Station in New Haven this morning. Lee, how's it down there?
Good morning, Ellie. Good morning, David. It's picked up just a little bit since about 5:30 this morning, but it's still relatively quiet here at Union Station. I am told that the trains are running on or close to schedule, but the question becomes, who's going to be on those trains? The commuters that I spoke to, most of them were taking the train to get off at stops along the route to New York to go to work. Only one commuter that I spoke to was actually going all the way into the city. Her office, Condé Nast she works for, is open, and though she had no desire to be in New York, she had some very compelling reasons to get on the train today. Okay, and one of the things she told me was that she was going to go to give blood. Another reason why she was getting on this train was that she had many friends on this train, many whom she only known by their first name. She did not know their last names, and she knew that they did work on and around the World Trade Center. She was very concerned about their safety, and she didn't know how to contact them. So another reason why she wanted to ride the train today was to see if those familiar faces would be on the train. And many of us are worrying about our family and friends. I know yesterday I was worried about my mother. She was in New York City, and she did come home last night on the train, so we were very happy that she was safe. Ellie and David, back to you.
We're happy too. You know, Lee, one thing that strikes me is that in spite of all of this, we really do have a plan when things like this happen. Transportation is going on today, which, considering, is a remarkable thing.
It is a remarkable thing, and we were just so grateful that people could get on these trains, that they were still up and running, and people could get out of the city and get home safely.
All right, thank you so much, Lee. Lee Ferlisi in New Haven this morning.
Thanks, Lee. All airports nationwide are still shut down this morning. That includes Bradley International. Airports will stay closed at least until noon today.
Now at Bradley, crews have been working to upgrade security. They've installed jersey barriers around the perimeter of the terminal. Again, Bradley and airports will remain closed until at least noon today. That's the earliest the FAA will lift its ban on air travel.
This is not the first time, of course, the World Trade Center has been a target of terrorism.
Our own Scott Haney was working at the top of one of those towers when it was bombed by terrorists back in 1993. He joins us now live from Manhattan. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Another day is dawning here in Manhattan. It's going to be another day in terms of weather, very similar to the way yesterday started. Unfortunately, the clouds started to fill with smoke. We're shrouded with the remnants of what used to be the World Trade Center. We just want to share a couple of other stories with you. I was on the corner of 20th and 2nd Avenue, which is now the new command post where they have relocated for the entire operations. I saw Governor Pataki, Mayor Giuliani. Everybody was being ushered into what was the police academy there for 1,200 new recruits who will be joining the New York City police force. That has now become the command center here, and that's where all the information is disseminating from. And I was standing there, and this young gentleman came over to me in a cadet uniform, and he said, "You're from Channel 3?" And I said, "Yeah, up in Hartford." He goes, "I grew up in Newington," and his name was Jim Reinbolt. And I said, "Jim, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm a cadet, and this is my 3rd month of training. I moved down to New York City, and we were sitting in class, and they came up to us, and the door opened, and one of our captains walked in, and he said, 'A plane struck the World Trade Tower.'" Now, they all said that they looked around each other and kind of chuckled. They thought it was some kind of a drill to see how that the cadets would react to a situation like this. And then when they got down to business, they realized that this was no joke and that an actual plane had struck, 2 planes had struck the World Trade Center. So just again, some of the surreal stories. Another good friend of mine, Ray Joyce, I've known him for years. He works in the World Trade Tower. He gets to work at 9:30 in the morning, and when he walked in, just as he was entering the building, that's when the first plane struck, and he stepped back. He didn't go into the building, and he looked up, and he just stood there for a couple of minutes, and it was long enough time that the second plane struck the building, and before you knew it, he was in up to his knees with debris, and he was running for his life. And then after that, he started to tell me about the experience of what it was like to witness people literally jumping out of a building. Sir, why don't you come on in here? We'll talk to you. Come on in. We have an eyewitness for you. He was here from beginning to end, right? Give us your full name.
Yes, good morning. My name is Nicky Orr. I'm working for Park and Recreation, City of New York. And yesterday, around 9 o'clock, I was on 6th Avenue and 3rd West. And I see the plane fly just right above my head. And I follow the plane because I believe it's something wrong with the plane.
It was too low.
Yes, it was just right above the tree. And when I follow the plane fly, I see when he directed the plane right in a tower direction. And I said, wow, maybe it's a mechanical problem. So, and I just watch the plane when he hit the building and disappear in the building.
Can you believe it?
I can believe it. I believe it's a show. I believe it's, it was like a movie.
It was worse than any movie.
It's incredible. But anyway, I continue to watch and to watch and to watch, and I see the smoke goes over the building. Was anything else than flame and smoke. And not long ago, I see another bad explosion because it was from another section, and I can't see another plane, but I see a big ball of fire and explosion.
A horrible day.
Horrible, and in that moment I said, no, that's something wrong. Is not just accidental. And after that, I continued to watch all of the scenario, and finally I was a witness for collapsing of building. But before that, because I have a bike and I just run next to the area, and I see myself when the people jump from the window. That was too much.
It's too much.
I can't believe it.
Okay, thank you very much. We want to thank you for your work. Again, you can see behind me, if you have plans to come to Manhattan today, don't. It's just simply the bridges, the tunnels, everything is still closed. There are physical barricades starting at about 6th Avenue and 14th Street. 14th Street is the furthest south that you can get today. There is still a lot of city behind 14th Street, and in order to get past these barricades, you need to show physical ID that you live in some of these buildings. That's the only way you're going to get by. So that's about it from here for right now. We're going to talk to a few more people, David and Ellie, about what it's like to live in New York City, and are they afraid now to be here?
All right, we'll check back in with you in a little bit.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you so much.
Scott Haney from Midtown this morning.
Like many across the nation, Connecticut residents came through during this time of need, coming together to help in any way they can. Close to 500 people crammed through the doors at the Red Cross in Farmington to donate blood or ask how they could help. No question, the demand for blood will be extreme as the number of injuries continues to rise. The Red Cross says this emergency blood drive is no doubt their most attended blood drive ever. The Red Cross has a number of blood drives scheduled across Connecticut today in Bridgeport, Hartford, East Hartford, and New Haven. If you would like to donate, you can call the Red Cross toll-free at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE. A list of blood drives is also available at WFSB.com.
Now, President Bush did address the country last night at about 8:30. He said in a live address that acts of terrorism will not stand and that American resolve will be strong.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect our citizens at home and around the world from further attacks. The functions of our government continue without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are reopening for essential personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Our financial institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. I appreciate so very much the members of Congress who have joined me in strongly condemning these attacks. And on behalf of the American people, I thank the many world leaders who have called to offer their condolences and assistance. America and our friends and allies join with all those who want peace and security in the world, and we stand together to win the war against terrorism. Tonight, I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened, And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice.